than Chuck Norris, maybe John Wayne? No, I don't think so, because John Wayne was a patriot, but he really wasn't the Taekwondo champion and all the rest of it. Tell us what's going on with the current Chuck Norris planet. I mean, this is Planet Norris.
Yeah, it is. You know, it's so great being Chuck Norris's son. When I was 13, 14 years old, it was just like this, a front seat to seeing a movie star being created. And, you know, in a strange way, it's kind of a lot like what's going on now. It was perfect timing in the late 70s, early 80s for a new American hero to be born. And that was my dad. My dad was that new American hero.
He's the new John Wayne.
And it was great. It was, what a blessing to watch this happen and how it changed my world. You know, as kids, my dad was a karate teacher. So every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we packed up in the station wagon. We went to a car dealership, did a karate demonstration, trying to get students into the karate.
And of course, he'd been in the military before that, an MP.
Yeah, he was in Korea. He learned karate in Korea.
Stay there. You have the floor when we return.
Promise?
We may have to go. We need to get you some water, whatever. But Mike Norris is here, and it's exciting. I want you. I heard 2 hours of it, but I want you to get to hear some of this stuff because it's amazing. We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, with Mike Norris. You can just actually go over and just pat him, and there he is right there. We'll be back. Oh, we're not worthy. We're not worthy.
We're on the mark.
Amerigeddon hitting theaters and your online viewing as well. There with the Netflix, you name it, on the online systems, TV systems, coming up in November, December of 2015. Could not be a better time. It deals with internationalists, globalists, using the federal government to basically bring in a creeping tyranny and a seizure of the infrastructure of the country, just like the TPP's doing. And if we ever try to say no, then they bring in the force. Now, without further ado, we've got Gary Haven in here, entrepreneur, the creator of the largest successful franchise in world history, according to Forbes, Curves, which he retired from a few years ago. And then, of course, we have Mike Norris, 20-plus films, some of the top Christian films, other films, TV shows, mainline TV shows he's produced. Of course, working with his father and others, but doing a lot of his own productions, is Mike Norris. Okay. We've only got this segment and one more, maybe a little bit of overdrive. You've been a trooper sitting there while we talk about the New World Order, but thank you for coming down to Austin from Dallas. For folks that just joined us, Mike Norris, tell us about the real Chuck Norris, because a bunch of this stuff's not known.
Wow, the real Chuck Norris.
It's even cooler than what we heard.
You know, he really is an amazing man that has done so many amazing things, not only for the country, for the troops, but for his family and for his friends. Just a huge blessing, just a huge blessing.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you told us so many of the stories. I don't think you even need that earpiece. They can take it off you. It's just dangling there. I know it's hard to talk about your dad, but it's also fun. When we're sitting around eating Mexican food, though, you were telling the stories. Where should we begin? Let's start at the beginning, you know, where you just ended, driving in the station wagon every weekend to recruit folks for karate class.
Yeah. And it was my dad and I. We had this routine we did together. You know, we'd be walking across each other. He'd bump into me. We'd do a fight scene. And, you know, we'd go to Chuck Norris karate schools. So he ended up losing his karate schools. And he was teaching Steve McQueen private lessons. And Steve goes, why don't you just become an actor? And he's like, well, I can't talk in front of people. He says, let everybody else do all the talking. You say what's important. And that's kind of how Chuck Norris started in the cinema. But while that was all taking place, we'd go out to California. We'd go motorcycle riding with Steve McQueen. I'll never forget. Steve McQueen tied a rope around his stomach. I was on an Indian motorcycle, and I was going in circles. And he was just teaching me how to ride a motorcycle at 9 years old. I'm like going, wow, this is pretty cool.
I talked to folks in Hollywood, and they say Steve McQueen is hands down the coolest ever.
Had to be. He was great. He was great. And later on in life, his son and I, Chad, did a movie together. It was really fun. My dad had a lot of very interesting people that he taught karate to. Bob Barker is a black belt. He did that fight scene in that Adam Sandler movie, Happy Madison. Knocked him out. And so as a kid, I just get up, I go with my dad, I'll sit there, he teaches class, we go home, go home together. It was when he started making films that it was just such a meteoric rise. It was like we were talking about, our country at that time needed a hero. And our country at this time needs a wake-up call. And that's what, we're providing for the country. A lot what my dad did back then.
Yeah, because the globalists were putting us through a process then of demonizing America, blaming America's problems on Americana, when Americana was the answer to the globalist poison. Just like they're doing now. He was a pro-America hero that people needed, and notice today he's speaking out against the globalists. Let's get into Bruce Lee.
Oh, yeah. Bruce Lee. Wow. My dad and Bruce met a number of times, and there's a lot of stories that you could read online about my dad and Bruce training.
Yeah, but you told us some that nobody knows. Tell us some of those.
No, I fought in a karate tournament, and I'd won, and my dad was going to fight that night, but Bruce Lee was there, and I'm getting a picture with Bruce Lee, and I'm like going, oh my gosh, this is Bruce Lee, but I'll never forget. There was a guy in the audience, and he kept looking and staring, and I kept looking back at the guy, and finally Bruce just grabbed my face and put it forward like this, and we snapped the picture. And it was amazing, and to this day I still have that picture of Bruce Lee. But growing up in our household was very adventurous. For some reason, my father was a magnet for anybody that needed help. And we shared a lot of stories, and they're all things I could say over here. It's no problem, but a Sunday morning, I'm 11 years old, there's somebody banging on the front door, and I come to the front door, I open up, and there's some guy there with a samurai sword going, where's Chuck Norris? I go,
so people wanted to come fighting.
These are his people my dad knew. That if they were in trouble or something, they all showed up at our house. I don't know why. My dad could give them advice.
Well, he was the guru.
He really was. And, here's a guy standing there with a samurai sword, and I just looked at him, I go, Dad?
Oh, my God.
And my dad comes down, talks the guy down, gets him out of there. Oh, we've had people come stay at our house and said they were relatives, spent the night. We're all stuck in a bedroom, my mom, my dad, my brother, and I. And my dad's going to my mom going, don't you understand? I can kick this guy's butt. And he's got control of the house, and we're locked in a little room, and we've got some guy walking around the house saying he's our Uncle Gene from Oklahoma. Tons of stories like that. It was so exciting to, especially just kind of go back to that time when life was simple. And
when did your dad become, from kind of a mainline conservative constitutionalist? I know he's a big fan of the Founding Fathers. I read his columns. Yeah, I read one he wrote a few years ago. It was great about, why we need another George Washington or more George Washingtons. When did his views, when did he become aware of the New World Order, the globalists, the larger program?
I think that really came on after we were done doing Walker, Texas Ranger, when, in a sense, he kind of retired really from acting is after Walker. I don't recall him. I mean, we did Expendables, but, I think after Walker, it gave him time to kind of read, reflect, investigate. He's always been political. He's been, I've been great friends with presidents.
I don't want to speak for him. He's been on the show a few times, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and then a few years ago. But he listens quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely. And I called him while we were filming. I go, Dad, Alex Jones is coming to play a part in our movie. And he was so excited. He goes, really? Tell Alex I love him. I listen to his show all the time. And I'm like, I will. So
it's just bizarre to have Chuck Norris, a regular listener.
Yeah.
You told me a lot of other stories. I don't know how many of these we can tell.
Well, I didn't tell you anything that I...
It was all good. It was all good. No, it was all really good.
Yeah. But it's exciting, and I consider it a privilege, and I also consider it a responsibility of being Chuck Norris's son, because I'm not only representing myself, I am representing my family, which is my father, which is my children, which is Gary. I mean,
Well, your dad's got to be proud of you fighting the globalists like you are right now and putting out these great Christian films.
He's really excited. He's excited that obviously, Gary, a guy,
Let me remember when Mike shared with him that we were going to do this movie. He asked you one question:
are you willing to die for it?
Oh, now we're getting to some of the stories.
Are you willing to die for this movie? Because that's how important this script was.
Chuck Norris said that.
Yes.
Wow.
Now,
what do you mean by that?
Who was the director on that anti-establishment film that was killed?
Dinesh D'Souza just got locked up. A bunch of people are getting killed.
In Minnesota, a 32-year-old veteran was making a movie, Gray
State. Oh, yeah, they definitely. No, it's bad. I know. Believe me, I'm not trying to act like we're in danger or anything because I want to freak people out, but I mean, this is a real deal.
I'll share that. Yeah. We were middle filming, and we pick up the newspaper, and this young director was found in his home with an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, along with his 5-year-old daughter and his wife. The people that it was suspicious. People who knew him said this is impossible. He was excited, just
like the state senator that was exposing the pedophile rings was coming on my show. The next week we covered at the start of the show. She got executed at her house in a murder-suicide.
So when we heard this, I told Mike, I said, man, I'm glad I'm not the director on this movie.
Well, they're scared of movies, and your dad's right. So your dad thinks this is a dangerous film.
Oh, absolutely.
But he was saying, go for it, he was warning you.
I think he was proud. I think we need to be more bold.
I agree.
We need to speak up. Now,
well, look, you're doing some bold stuff right now.
I got, with full disclosure, a lot of my knowledge has come from Gary.
Hey, don't blame me.
All the money's come from Gary.
We got to make this film hit big.
Yeah, and it's coming together good. And that's why it's fun to come in here, kind of talk about it. And you play such a key role in the opening of the film. And
it's a long scene.
Well, that was just a minute, but the scene is long and
powerful.
It sets up the rest of the movie. So
instead of having like Blade Runner where there's a long narration about replicants of the future,
yeah.
You're not cop, you're little people. This is done in a congressional hearing where you really get everything.
Absolutely.
It was really smart. And again, who wrote that? You wrote
I wrote that scene.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'll kind of restate it.
That's a smart way to introduce a film.
Yeah. In the movie opens where I'm the Charlie Gray, the kind of the star, the hero of the movie, and I'm in front of a Senate hearing, and Alex plays an evil senator, very, very evil, and we have a debate. I'm challenging the government to do something about protecting America from its most imminent threat. This is real life. And that's an EMP attack, an electromagnetic pulse. And I'm calling his attention that the Congress has already determined it's the #1 threat. And he is ridiculing me, which is what the strategy of those people do. And so we have this opening scene where you get a gist of what the movie's going to be about and what you should be concerned about. And you also get to see the political establishment to kind of poo-poo this whole thing. And it's a great way to kind of get up to speed about what you're about to watch.
Yeah.
Well, it's dynamite. The whole thing's powerful. And if we just had more people doing this, I tell you, it could launch a whole new genre of patriot cinema. And just like, I mean, now I'll see in the top box office of the top 50 films or so, like 10 of them are Christian. And a lot of these have really good messages. And so that means we're starting to have victories against these people.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's maybe a sliver in Hollywood that could be awake, because they have dropped hints in other big Hollywood films.
Oh, more and more we're seeing the people talk about the New World Order, like the Captain America Winter Soldier.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that whole thing is exposing, the Hydra system and what it's doing and how it's taking our rights and the NSA. I mean, well, you're out in Hollywood, some. You know how many people are awake out there. I mean, that's the thing, is it came out in the news that there's thousands of closet libertarians and conservatives. They have secret meetings.
Yeah.
Because they're not communists.
And it goes a lot deeper in Hollywood than that, as far as the agenda in Hollywood.
Now you're starting to go. Skip the network break. Go ahead.
And
come on.
No, okay. It is. There is an agenda in Hollywood, right? We know what the agenda is. It's to
In the family.
It's to